Meeting of the RTM will come to order. Good evening. It's Wednesday, September 13th, 2017, 7:30 p.m. at the Groton Senior Center. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Representative Adams? Here. Bailey?
Here.
Baker? Here. Burrell?
Here.
Bauer? Burgos? Casper?
Here.
Sini?
Here.
Dean Chinbrot?
Here.
Evans? Here. Frickman?
Here.
Garcia? Gilly?
Here.
Hubbard? Kent?
Here.
Longino? Laughlin?
Here.
Marr? Marley? Massett?
Here.
McCabe?
Here.
McDermott?
Here.
Merritt?
Here.
Nault? Nugent?
Here.
Aubry?
Here.
Parker? Pasqualini?
Here.
Powers?
Here.
Quinn? Sleeker Hersant?
Here.
Steinford?
Here.
Irma Streeter?
Here.
Jim Streeter?
Here.
Swindell? Wagner? Wells?
Here.
Williams? Wilson? And Newsom, 26 members.
There are 26 members present. I declare a quorum. Will everyone please stand for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business tonight is approval of the June 14th and August 9th meeting minutes. We didn't have a quorum last meeting, so we did not approve the June 14th meeting minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the June 14th, 2017 RTM meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to approve the June 14th, 2017 RTM meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of approval of the June 14th, 2017 RTM meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move to the August 9th meeting minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the August 9th, 2017 RTM meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded for approval of the August 9th meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? I believe in the August 9th meeting minutes, did I have some additional comment after?
You might have.
Is it included?
Nope.
No. Can I trouble you to add it?
If you want to.
I'd made a comment after Representative McDermott had spoke about making a referral to the Rules and Procedures Committee. I talked about the RTM needing to revisit Rule 8.1, conflict of interest, and then I'd like that put into the meeting minutes.
Okay.
So the meeting minutes have been amended. Is there any other discussion on the meeting minutes?
Right here.
Representative Nugent.
I know. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is very small, but under special report and presentation by Police Chief Azzaro, my name was misspelled. It should be Neugent, left out. It's Nugent, not Nugent. But okay. Thank you.
So noted.
Any other discussion on the August 9th meeting minutes? Seeing none, we'll vote on the amended August 9th, 2017 RTM meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Yes, you abstain.
One abstention.
Yeah, you don't have to abstain.
What is that?
25.
Motion carries 25 to 0 to 1. Citizens petitions. This is the portion of the RTM agenda where the RTM welcomes comments from citizens. Each presentation should be limited to 10 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit written comments. Presentation should be limited to matters pertinent to Groton. The speakers, the moderator rather, or members through the moderator shall ask questions only in order to clarify the speaker's presentation. Responses may be given by the moderator and or by the town manager. Citizens should make their presentations from the lectern and state their name and address for the record. Right now, we only have one person on the list, Jean-Claude Amboise.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. RTM members,
Could you
my
please,
name is Jean-Claude Amboise, 169 Shenecosset Parkway. I came up here this evening to speak with you about the actions that have been taken by the 11 commissioners appointed by the Town Council on the Charter Revision Commission. In a 7-2 decision, they want to make a radical change to Groton government. I believe that this is not change for the better for the town of Groton. Recently at a public hearing, citizens spoke out at the public hearing with the majority of the speakers opposed to the changes that were recommended by this draft resolution. There were numerous arguments. I will discuss those momentarily, but the arguments after this public hearing by the Charter Revision Commission was that most of the members that were opposed to this action were RTM members. Most of the people that were opposed to this action were city residents, but I beg to differ. After some brief research based on the addresses provided in the comments, there were 40% represented from the city, 36% represented in Mystic, 9% in Noank, 5% of Groton Long Point, 5% of the Pleasant Valley area, and also 5% of the Pequannock area. So this was, I say, a little bit of false information that was given. One of the problems that I had by one of the members on this Charter Revision Commission was saying that, and this is where I'm leading to, they want to eliminate this body right here, okay? And I'm totally against that as a citizen because it doesn't reflect the diversity by going and changing to a at-large Board of Finance. The one argument that one of the members of the Charter Revision Commission said was that you guys don't show up to meetings or we don't show up to meetings. And I beg to differ. And he was stating that roughly 28 to 30 members were coming during the budget time. Well, that equals out to about a 75% attendance rate, okay? But if we look at the numbers that were given by the members, they voted, there were 11 members on this commission, and only 9 showed up to the meeting to approve this draft. So that gives them an 81% approval rate. So again, they win by 6, and they have a smaller number. So by theory, they should all be there. So we want those 7 people that approve this measure to go on and go forward to the town council for them to discuss and decide whether they want this to go to referendum. And they didn't have their whole membership there. And we're giving these 7 individuals that might not have an education in the governance of a town, finances, and all the other bits and pieces to make the decision for all of us, all 40,000 of us here in the town. Like I said at the public hearing previously, if you look around the room, this to me is a little bit more representative of the town of Groton, not the room that was all opposed to it. And I just feel like if you have a Board of Finance that is an at-large, the District 2 is not represented, District 3, District 6, District 7. I would have been all for this proposed change to the Charter Revision if that possible concession would have been made, but it wasn't. So I can't approve of it. Again, the CRC says that the Board of Finance would be an at-large election, which I completely am opposed to. One of the recommendations I made, and I was there at that first public hearing meeting, and I had said, I would love to see if we're not getting enough members here as the RTM, let's reduce the size of the RTM and then make it more effective. But apparently that wasn't followed. And people that were critical of my comments had mentioned that that was something they proposed, but it didn't, it fell on deaf ears. So again, I can't side with that. One reason why I think the RTM is very important, especially for me, was it introduced me to town governance. And I thought it was quite informative. And once you get elected to that position, you learn a little bit more how the town operates. Our function is to work on the fiscal matters of the town. And for me, it was an eye-opening experience. And I would encourage anybody, even citizens out there that are interested in getting involved in Groton government, to please get involved. Come to a meeting. Watch it on TV. Everything's Everything's option. And and for me, it's a career ladder thing. Even if you wanted to get in government and you learn at an entry-level spot, consider like here at the RTM, next thing you know, that individual then goes to the town council. If I ended up being moderator at one point. And matter of fact, we have our state representative, Representative Conley here, who started her career in town here in the RTM, went to the moderator position, and now is our elected official for the state of Connecticut. And I thank her for that. So I urge you, the RTM, to contact your town councilors, talk to your constituents out there in the town of Groton, call the town council, call your constituents in RTM, and support keeping the RTM and rejecting this draft proposal. Remember, change for change's sake is not good, and it definitely is not good for Groton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak tonight that has not signed up? Very well. We will continue on. Reception of communications. Representatives Nault, Wilson, Wagner, and Parker all stated they could not be here tonight. Also, I want to announce the resignation of Lori Watchus from the RTM. She sent in this letter. It has been a pleasure to serve the town on the RTM. I have recently accepted a position with the town that is more closely related to the town budget. Therefore, I'm tendering my resignation from the RTM effective August 22nd, 2017. So we thank Lori for her service on the RTM and wish her well. Report of the town manager.
Good evening.
Hang on 1 second. What did I forget?
Well, we had a caucus in the first district to fill that vacancy, and John Espada was elected. So as soon as he comes into my office to be administer the oath, then he will be a voting member.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, sorry.
Good evening. The preliminary fund balance as of June 30th, 2017, which is still unaudited at this point, is approximately $10.8 million, which is 9.1% of the FYE 2018 general fund adopted budget. The general contingency fund contingency budget is for FYE 2018 is $650,000. The capital reserve fund balance as of August 31st, 2017 is estimated at $836,786, again unaudited. Other than that, several of us went to meet with the governor last week, which was interesting to say the least. We had, of course, Dr. Ganir, Kim Watson, Mayor Flax, myself, and Mayor Hendricks. Interesting meeting, so it was a good exercise to go through. Mayor Hendrick and I met with Electric Boat with Jeff Geiger last week to talk about what we can do to help with their development, and we're going to do the same thing with Pfizer next week, just to have a meeting with their president. And then my intention is to kind of work my way down, meet with as many companies as I can, reach out to them. Other than that, we have a solar ribbon cutting. It is on Thursday 21st at 11 a.m. at Polaris Park. The Chamber has a Pfizer business update business breakfast this Friday at the Groton Inn and Suites at 7:45. Town manager news, there's some great info in there from the Economic Development Department, some great handouts. If you want to see it in color, you can look online. We did scan those in color, but they're doing a lot of good work in there. And we'll be sure to have them come give an update really soon. And then last month I brought some summary budgets. If you haven't received one, there's some on the table, so please be sure to grab some. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the town manager? Representative Nugent.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yeah, before I ask my question, I just wanted to briefly mention, because of John Claude's comments, that last night at the town council, they announced the town council will be having their own public hearing on the charter revision changes at their next regular town council meeting, Tuesday, October 3rd at 7:30. As far as I know, that will be televised, so another opportunity for people to speak. Just a question on, because you mentioned your meeting with the governor, and thank you for doing that. Now, we know that we hope that the legislature will be taking a vote tomorrow. We don't know the outcome, but I had a question. If the legislature passes a actual budget and the governor and the big guy signs it, what what's the process for the town of Groton making any adjustments to our budget? Like if we get less money than we anticipated, and, you know, we passed a budget making some assumptions about what we thought we might get
Right.
from the state. So if we got a less, we got more, is there a process for adjusting the budget, or what happens, and what would be the role of the RTM?
Sure. I'm new to the process, so I'll answer best I can, but because I have not been through the process yet. You know, if it came out less, then we'll have a joint meeting, I'm sure, between the Board of Ed and the Town Council to start talking about what the options are, and we'll see. You know, we'll have to see some of what comes out of anything that does pass for any tools for making changes, any rule changes. We're just gonna have to analyze it and see what happens. But I would assume that anything, as always, anything that affects budgets more than 10,000 would come here. If we get more money, which hope, fingers crossed. I do want to commend our representatives, Representative Conley, Representative De La Cruz, and Senator Summers have given regular updates. Representative Conley's been in regular contact all the time. I'm glad she's here tonight to give an update on the process. But we'll have to just sit down and figure out what's changed, what the options are, and go from there. But I'm sorry, without having gone through the process, I don't want to guess too much. So I'm still in the learning mode. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Nugent, I think the town council kept a list of things that they wanted to, in the event that we got more money, that they would contemplate spending that money on. So I think there's a list that would get teed up if we got more money. Don't want to think about getting less.
In addition, we had talked last month about the police radio communication systems and the CAD system. That would be something that we'd want to bring into that discussion too.
So it would be the normal thing if any special appropriations over $10,000 would come to us after the town council to vote on, just the kind of the normal process. Okay, thank you.
Representative Massett.
Good evening, Mr. Town Manager. I watched the meeting last night, and the representatives from the community garden were there, and they are doing an absolutely incredible job. It's wonderful what they're doing. My question to you is, are there any other uses for that property that could go on while the garden is there doing what they do? I know you probably don't have the answer off the top of your head. And my second question is, other than mowing the property, is there anything else that the town does for the garden, and how much does it cost us? Thank you.
Sure. First, on the other uses, they presented a plan last night that would also include some recreational uses, which the council had recommended moving forward with a 4-year agreement. I just happened to read the old agreement shortly before I came here, and I'm working on an update. Actually, I just sent it to them for an updated agreement for them to review. But they have a lot of recreational uses in mind, and which their plan would take up most of the property. Plus, I think it's fairly restrictive on the zoning there. In the old agreement, it calls for us to do basically the maintenance we were doing prior, the mowing. It requires that to maintain the original agreement, as well as providing water. That's the only two things in the agreement, and I can't tell you offhand what the amounts are. I can find out, but those are the only two things in the agreement for what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Casper.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Manager, I noticed looking through here, there's some stuff about the airport, but nothing was mentioned about the ALPA regional fly-in, which is coming up beginning of October. And that's a really big deal, and Groton is very lucky to have that being held. There are only 4 held per year, and the closest ones are to us, well, one in California, one in Oklahoma, which have taken place, one in Groton, and the next one is going to be down in Tampa. And this is really a big deal.
It is, and I should have mentioned that. Where I came from, I actually had an airport underneath me, and we had thought about holding one of these events, but we just couldn't get that capacity of people in there. But it's a big event, anywhere from 300 to 600 planes. They're hoping more towards the 600, thousands of people coming into town. We are, as a town, providing some barriers and other things to help traffic control, some things like that, that we're helping out where we can. But it is a big event. It's going to mean a lot. I know they have lots of rooms booked in the community. So thank you for pointing it
Mr.
out.
Manager, can you explain that event?
What's that?
What is that event?
It's really more of a trade thing for the most part. You have about 600 pilots fly in. They put on educational programs for the pilots. They have demonstrations. Vendors come and present different products, and the public is free and welcome to come out there and see what's happening out there. They encourage that. It's a great event.
October 7th?
It's that Friday and Saturday. Whatever. I think it's the 6th and 7th. Is that right?
Friday and Saturday.
Mm. Right.
Thank you. Representative Aubrey.
Just as part of that information, I think it's important that everybody knows that because of the number of people coming in, there's going to be a shuttle running that will take people to other events that we have in the area. They're going to be able to go to the Seaport, downtown Mystic. They're going to be able to come to the Fall Festival, which we're doing that Saturday also. I think maybe they're taking them to the Nautilus, so there'll be a loop. And so the families that aren't as involved as maybe the pilot will be able to come out and really see what we have here, which I think is a very, very important part of that.
And if you go to the AOPA website, they list out lots of the activities in this region that there are to do, which hopefully people will visit and then come back again later to see more of it.
Well done. Are there any other questions for the town manager? Thank you very much. Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Grenier.
Well, good evening. I've got quite a few things actually to report on. One of them is a staffing report that I promised to come forward with. As you know, the school budget was cut by $2.8 million. So because of that, we closed Pleasant Valley School, so the 18 teaching positions were reduced, 1 principal, 1 secretary, 2 custodians. But we are still in the process of putting our staffing plan together for this year. A fair number of naval personnel children have come with already with indications in their education record that they require a paraprofessional. So we are actually still finalizing our staffing plan, but all of that ultimately will get squared away, and I keep talking to Representative Connolly, and hopefully we'll have a budget one of these days, and we will in fact address the whole question of potentially restoring money. As you know, the governor's plan was to restore full funding. The governor's plan was just a couple of weeks ago, was to restore full funding to ECS. So that would be $25 million. That's been the number that has really caused such grave concerns. But I'm hopeful that we will in fact get the $25 million restored. And then we'll see where the dust settles after that. I'm not even sure if there's going to be a minimum budget requirement. So all the things you were talking about, Representative Nugent, that's going to be potentially packaged in the budget deal. The second thing I want you to know is we the town, the Permanent Building Committee, Mr. Trejo, is moving forward with the Groton 2020 plan. This week, the firm of Silva Petrocelli and Associates was hired to design the new middle school, the consolidated middle school. And we will not move forward any further than that until the state budget is passed and the bonding commission acts. There's several building projects throughout the state, and we won't actually move forward until the official bonding numbers are approved. did want you to know in terms of school facilities, there's been an enormous amount of work done all summer, but probably the most important was that we took 2 of the classrooms from Pleasant Valley that were in portable classrooms, that were in portables, and moved them to Charles Barnum. And it was quite a, as you can imagine, moving a huge classroom down up Route 12 was an event. But it was put on a foundation, and now we have 2 full-size classrooms, 2 additional, which we desperately need, because one of the things that has become obvious is while we move quickly to accommodate the $2.8 million cut, now we're really starting to see that many of the classes are overcrowded. We've got 25, 26 children in some of our classes, the kindergarten classes in particular. We like to keep the kindergarten classes in the high teens or about 20, and several of them are up to 23, 24 students. So and we don't have any more classrooms. Even if we had money, we don't have classrooms. So we're struggling on that front. But in the good news category, we put in for another Department of Defense education activity grant. Right, 2 years ago, we got a $1 million grant to provide professional development training for our literacy program. We put in another grant for this year, and a couple of weeks ago, it was approved by the Department of Defense. So we got another $1.25 million grant, this time for mathematics. So we currently have $2.25 million grants at the same time from the Department of Defense. Those grants are eligible for schools that have a minimum of 20% military children. So they're eligible for the 2 elementary schools, Charles Barnum and Mary Morrison, actually as well as the high school and West Side. So we're going to be sharing tutors and professional development. We're really quite excited. This year will be a planning year for that. The other pretty interesting news is that a month ago, the Fitch High School music program was invited by the London, England municipality to participate in the 2019 New Year's Day parade, celebration, performances. So on Tuesday, a Queen's representative is coming to Fitch High School, and he is going to officially invite us. And so the kids have, the board approved that the kids have started a fundraising. It's not a, as you can imagine, it's not a cheap field trip. It's about $3,000, but we're going to try to fundraise at least 1,000 of that. And so we're hoping to have 150 or so students, potentially as many as 150. There are only 3 music programs in the country that were invited, so it's really quite an honor. School opening went extremely well. The students started on the 31st of August. Everything has gone really well so far. But as I say, we continue to struggle with some large class sizes. And lastly, John Burt was actually quite modest. He was the one who set up the meeting with the governor. And
Betsy's suggestion.
Oh, Betsy's suggestion. Well, she's being not only modest but quiet. But we went there at the appointed hour, and it was quite impressive. The governor and the Secretary Barnes, the budget secretary, invited us right in, and we sat down and started to explain some information. It was very respectful. I don't want to give you the wrong impression, but the governor said publicly that Groton school population had been reduced by nearly 10%. And I nicely said that was not true. In fact, we've had about 4,900 students for the last 15 years. And he basically said, whatever. So that was a little dismaying. And then I explained a little bit about the nature of the military and having these children that requires a huge effort from the taxpayers, that we are honored to serve the military children, but it is a a huge burden for the taxpayers. And he basically, the only thing he wanted to talk about was a per capita equalized grand list, which is relatively high, at least compared to a place like New London. And then he pointed out that New London had a 12% increase in their population, and I said, that's because we have sent, and we pay, tuition for hundreds of children to go there. And of course their population has gone up. They have to have 25%. In order for New London Public Schools to operate as a magnet district, they must have 25% of the children come from outside of New London. So if their population only went up by 12%, then that's problematic. Or it actually means we're sending a lot of children there. And in fact, we send just New London, I think it was 279 students attend, 279 of our students attend there. And, you know, some of that magnet school choice is a great idea. And we have other students who go to regional multicultural magnet school. That's been going on for decades. But I pointed out to the governor that we actually have a grant to pay for this, but we transport the children. We pay their tuition. They are very much Groton residents, and somehow I think his staff didn't quite figure that one out. But you know, he said he said that he was, you know, he thought he understood the situation with Groton, and he was supportive. And John and Bruce came, and we talked a little bit about BRAC and just the enormous importance of this naval base to the whole state of Connecticut. And so we left, and then a couple of days later, I'm not sure what sort of impact we had, but he went from a $17.5 million cut in ECS to no dollar cut in ECS. I actually don't think he listened to a word we really said. So somehow, but somehow, if they give us back the $25 million, I'll be very happy. And then, as Representative Nugent said, yeah, we have sustained expenses like moving the portable, for example, which thank God we were able to do, but that cost $65,000. It was, you know, it's a big bill. You know, it's darn near as big as this room. It's in two pieces, and so it cost $65,000. I actually don't know where that $65,000 is coming from. But if I don't have those two classrooms, you know, we would not be able to service the number of children. So, trying to, if some money gets restored, please God, I'm going to be very hopeful that some of those cuts and some of those expenses that we've sustained will be able to be restored. So we'll see. And as John said, Representative Connolly and Dela Cruz and Senator Summers have been in frequent communication with us, and I really appreciate it. And she knows I'm a rosary guy, so tomorrow's a big day, and I'm hoping that we will be able to celebrate a good budget, a fair budget. You know, and basically, I'll just end with, and that's what we said to the governor. We need a budget that restores fair and equitable funding to the municipalities in this state. And you know, if you give all the money back to the schools and you take a bunch of money away from the town, that doesn't work. You know, we're all one community, and I was so pleased to be part of. It was the second time actually Mayor Flax and I went together. Another time I went with Town Councilor Nault. This time with John and Keith Hedrick. We went as one Groton, and we represented both the town and the school, and I'm very hopeful that we're going to get some good results out of this, and be able to move forward as a municipality. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent? Representative Seen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Hi, Dr. Grenier.
Hi.
So some of this might be old questions, but just so you could re-educate me a little bit, please. What is our special need population? You had said that you were in the process of maybe hiring more.
Oh, I see what you mean. Some paraprofessionals.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I haven't looked. It was 13% of the students. What I know is that there was an increase, particularly in the military schools. For some reason, typically when students' education programs are written, it will occasionally say, and this was actually quite rare, that the student must have a paraprofessional. We're starting to get lots of those now, where it's actually written in. We didn't write it. So, the school system in Hawaii or someplace that writes it, and then we get it, and when we implement the child's program, we have to provide, in some cases, a one-on-one para. So that's what's giving rise to a few more paras.
Okay. And then, can I ask another question?
Please.
Okay. And then, I'm sure this was discussed, but I don't know the answer to this. What is our full bonding asking, and what happens if we get less? What not happens if we get less? Does the whole project stop, or what? Do you have a list of what's not going to happen?
The full bonding is $184 million. The state will pay $100 million, or will reimburse us $100 million of that in 84. That number I don't believe will go down, but of course it won't go up either. So as the years go by, you're right. There are unfortunately things, so they're going to have to be reduced. There's been, and I could ask the permanent building committee folks to come in. There's been some discussion because you get a certain number of square feet per child, and then they multiply that by the school. And we seem to be in a bit of a debate with the State Department, because now it gets turned over to the State Department of Administrative Services. So we said that one of our buildings was going to be 179,000 square feet, and they're saying they're only going to reimburse us for like 159. So we're sort of in those dialogues, but it will require, if need be, we're going to have to reduce. I know one thing about the middle school is we had a fairly large auditorium. So one of the things that I know some folks are thinking about is we would eliminate or greatly reduce an auditorium. And since the middle school is going to be such close proximity to the high school, that the middle school would use the high school's auditorium for its auditorium. And that would be a reasonable compromise that would greatly reduce the square footage.
Okay. And then, what is, I know I have it written down someplace, but I couldn't pull it up in my memory. What is the legal limit for a class size per teacher?
I don't think there is actually a legal limit.
There's not, what's?
My friends from California say 40, 45. We sort of horrified by that number. There is a board. There is a board desired maximum.
What is that?
Oh, it's like 25.
Okay.
For regular classrooms.
Okay. And then what is the, and then the new school that's going up here, what is the
middle school?
Yeah, the middle school. What is the student population? What is that being built for, to hold? How many students?
900.
900? All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions for the superintendent? All set. Thank you very much, sir. I asked Representative Connolly to come here tonight and speak to us about what the status is of the budget up at the state level. However, she is not on the agenda, therefore we need to suspend the rules to allow her to speak for the rules of the RTM. Therefore, I will make a motion to suspend the rules to allow Representative Connolly to speak. Is there a second? Second. Motion's been moved and seconded to suspend the rules to allow Representative Connolly to speak. This is a non-debatable motion, requires 2/3 of a majority to pass. All those in favor of suspending the rules to allow Representative Connolly to speak, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Representative Connolly, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Moderator, for inviting me here tonight. So we, meaning the entire Groton delegation, have been working since the budget was released in February to deal with issues in all of our districts. For me, it's Groton and Ledyard. For Rep. Delacruz, it's Groton and New London. For Senator Summers, it's Groton and many other towns that I have not memorized, as it's her district and not mine. As we all know, Groton's had issues, substantial issues with the governor's first budget, and I know our contingent was there recently, and I appreciate that they had a difficult meeting. We have had many, many of those difficult meetings. There is limited funds to go around, and we, as in the whole Groton, has been in many, many meetings to discuss why Groton deserves their fair share of those funds. There is no magic to fix this budget. There is no money tree. There is no extra pot of $5 billion that someone didn't realize we had. We are short money in the state of Connecticut. We have known that for years. We should have funded the pensions 30 years ago. We should have funded them in the 90s when there were surpluses. We, as in all the citizens of the state of Connecticut, should have been complaining more to Hartford to say why weren't the pensions and were being funded. But we all didn't do that, or people who complained didn't complain loud enough, and maybe they had some of those very difficult meetings that resulted in not much news. So we are in this situation together, and we need to get out of it together. So tomorrow the House is voting. The House is going in at 10 a.m. The Senate is going in at 3 p.m. Currently, I was up in the Capitol today. The budget is looking okay for Groton. The final numbers are being worked on. The final runs are being pulled. As you guys know from my time at the RTM, I do love myself a good Excel sheet that has a budget. And our Excel sheet for the state of Connecticut is a good 17 pages, but the legal language behind the 17-page Excel sheet's over 1,000 pages. So some excellent lawyers and many excellent accountants are working to make sure that those 17-page Excel sheets and that 1,000+ page document line up. Because if they don't, it means that the House and Senate get to come back again and revote. So we being the House going first, are prepared for an overnighter. They're talking about dinner on Friday. They're talking about breakfast on dinner on Thursday, breakfast on Friday. We are under the impression right now that we will be at the Capitol until something is voted upon, and that's what we're all looking forward to do. We've had 9 weeks at least of no budget. We've had many, many meetings. I have not been on vacation. I have not been enjoying my summer. I've been up at the Capitol having meetings with many of my colleagues, and we would love to be done with those meetings and be able to go back to district and go back and spend some time with our friends and families. But the budget does need to get done. Again, the final numbers are getting worked upon, but our ECS seems to be doing good, well within what we planned. Our municipal aid seems to be doing good, again, well within what we planned. There are no major revenue changes, no sales tax, no hotel tax, no marijuana tax, no income tax, no toll tax, no big taxes. It is a haircut for each and every department. So make sure that when hopefully the budget passes, I would love it to pass early Thursday evening, more likely early Friday morning or mid-Friday. When the budget does pass, that make sure that you do reach out to folks, because even areas that are 90% funded, that does mean that they have to find those pennies. It means that there may be waiting lists for some services that there weren't waiting lists before, but again, 90% funding is much better than 50% funding or 0% funding. Some of the budget proposals have zeroed very, very important services out. So as you guys know, my budget mentality is everyone gets a little haircut. So that if there is a waiting list, we are to be respectful and understand struggles, but having a waiting list and having 90% funding is much better than having 0% funding. So your entire contingency will be up there. The House will be there a little earlier than the Senate tomorrow because the House has to go first. And you're welcome to watch us all on CTN. Again, I don't think there'll be much to watch at 10 a.m. Because we'll probably be caucusing and going over figures. But watch us on CTN. It's just as good as Channel 2. And you get to see all the action going on in the Capitol. Please note, though, when you see empty seats, that means that folks are in the back rooms working out the details of things. So empty seats doesn't mean you're not there. It means you're in a different room where we'll all be there.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Representative Connolly, do you see any problems for next year?
It is a 2-year budget that will be passed. Oftentimes, the 2-year budgets anticipate revenues staying the same. So if there is a revenue change, so let's say that a big business moves in and is paying more taxes, then there's more revenue, and there can be adjustments. Those adjustments, as we've learned from past lessons, should be to fund the pensions, which are still underfunded. But if there is a change in the negative, the budget does have to be adjusted. Every quarter, our state of Connecticut budget requires an adjustment. If revenues are higher, what do we do with revenues? If revenues are lower, every quarter we have to fix the revenues. So every quarter the budget is reopened. Sometimes it's more newsworthy than others, based on amounts.
Thank you, Representative Connolly.
Thank you,
Mr.
Representative.
Moderator.
Thank you, Representative Bailey. Anybody else have any questions for Representative Connolly? I have a question. Can you explain, we hear a lot about ECS, but there are other funds and things that, so even if we get funded 100% of ECS, but then they cut these other funds, you know, we could still be in bad shape, right? Can you explain that?
So and I might need some help from my town manager or superintendent with all the funds. There are many, many funds that we get. We get PQOP funds, which come from the casino, revenue gaming, there's a floor now that it can't go below a certain dollar. We get municipal aid funds. We get special education funds. It's different than ECS funds. We get pilot money for state of Connecticut property within the town. I believe it's more than 9 different funds that equate to our municipal aid. Most of our money is in ECS, so that is, of course, something that we spend a lot of attention on. The other funds are important. So it's pay attention when you hear numbers, not just ECS. There'll be the ECS number, which Dr. Grenier pays most attention to, and then it's total municipal aid, which our town manager pays most attention to.
Thank you very much.
And that's why that 17-page sheet is 1,000 pages of language.
Mr. Manager?
Just to reference, the governor's budget he put out last Friday it kept ECS level, but it was about a $1.9 million cut to various town funds. So just to kind of note the numbers.
Well, thank you very much for coming here, Representative Connolly. I appreciate it. And yeah, you and Senator Summers and Representative Dela Cruz, you guys have put in some incredible hours, and you're up there fighting on our behalf. And I want to thank you very, very much from the citizens of Groton for your time.
Thank you. And this is a much more friendly room than the Capitol, so I'm always pleased to come back.
Thank you again. We'll take up where we left off. Are there any liaison reports? Seeing none, we'll move right to committee reports. Finance Chairman Nault, he's not here, but I don't believe the Finance Committee had a meeting. Community Development?
No meeting, no report.
Education?
No meeting, no report.
Recreation, Chairman Wilson's not here tonight, but I don't believe they had a meeting. Public Safety, Chairman McDermott.
No meeting, no report.
Public Works, Chairman Dean Schimbrot. Rules and Procedures, Chairman Massett.
There was a meeting. And I have a little bit of a report. The Rules and Procedures Committee met this evening, and the meeting was called to order at 6:32 p.m. Present Representative Massett, Representative Casper. Our guests were Representative McDermott and Moderator Newsom. Absent, Representative Adams, Representative Marley, Representative Swingal, Representative Williams, and Representative Streeter. And because there was no quorum, the meeting just consisted of discussion. Referral 8-9-2017, a review of RTM Rule, Section 8, discussions and debate, specifically concerning personal interest and other conflicts of interest. Representative McDermott suggested perhaps we change our rule to more closely align with the town charter language as it pertains to conflict of interest. We also discussed adding a new line to the information form that we all fill out when we're elected that will ask if any representative has any conflicts as defined by the town charter. We also discussed the appointment of representatives to committees with an eye to reducing the size of committees, and hopefully this will address the lack of a quorum at committee meetings. I also would like to, because we did not have a quorum, this referral will be placed before the body next month. By RTM rules, this referral must come before us for discussion of any changes and approved by a 2/3 vote of this body. The body will be notified in advance of the changes to allow time for you all to try to understand what's going on. And that was it. And the meeting adjourned at 6:50.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the report for the Rules and Procedures Committee. Motion to accept the committee minutes has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of accepting the Rules and Procedures Committee meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. That leaves us with item K, budget discussions. Does anybody have any budget discussions? Representative Pasqualini.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I do, and this is for the town manager. I guess I don't know if I should have it be a referral to finance. The way the budget's done, what I would like to see, or at least have the discussion on, is almost as though it's a zero balance budget, but work the other way. I want to see each department, the number they had last year, and then whether it's an increase or decrease, each line item that was increased or decreased, and the backup for that as to why it was decreased or increased. I mean, it's great to have all the line items through with all of the numbers, but that specifically calls those out. So if we should add or cut, they're substantiating why they had, whether it be contractual or whatever, so we can see where the increase was or wasn't. So I don't know if that's something that we can have a sit down with the town manager and finance director and the finance committee just to sit around and maybe a better way of looking at the budget than what we do now.
I think it's worthy of, at least worthy of a discussion. Mr. Manager?
Just to mention, me and Cindy Landry have actually started having some of those discussions and talking about, you know, because where I came from, I was used to seeing by line, you know, where the changes were. But I'm actually meeting with her tomorrow, and I'll bring it up for further discussion. I'm definitely open to that. So.
Make a referral to the Finance Committee. And I think it's worth getting together and starting those discussions. Is there any other business? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning?
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.